In today's video, I'm going to be foraging and preserving wild strawberries and wild raspberries. Unfortunately, the area that I live in is experiencing a really bad drought right now, so because of this drought, a lot of plants have suffered and there hasn't been much to forage lately. I did really want to include wild blackberries and mulberries in this video as well, however, because of the drought conditions, these plants did not thrive and they did not produce fruit this year, so it's just wild strawberries and wild raspberries today. Wild strawberries are low-growing plants that spread in the area fairly quickly due to their runners. Runners are just long stems that protrude out of the strawberry plant. They grow along the ground and eventually root themselves into the ground and produce a daughter plant. These daughter plants are genetically identical to the mother plant, and they will also eventually grow their own runners and continue the cycle over and over again. They grow small white flowers and compound leaves with 3 leaflets that are serrated around the edges. The leaflets are also connected to a stalk which is covered in a hair-like material. They eventually grow tiny little strawberry fruits that look and taste just like the strawberries you would get from your grocery store or your farmer's market, but much, much smaller. The one major annoyance about wild strawberries is that they're so incredibly miniature that you have to collect an absurd amount of berries just to be able to make a decent amount of jam. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to collect what I can, I'm going to put them in my freezer, and then as the summer progresses, I'm going to collect different types of berries, so wild raspberries, wild blackberries, whatever I can find, and I'm going to put those in my freezer as well until I feel like I've gathered enough, and then I'm going to make a mixed berry jam. Wild strawberries have lookalikes called mock strawberries. The big difference between them are the color of the flowers and the shape and direction of the fruit. Wild strawberries have white flowers with fruit that is more heart-shaped that points down, and mock strawberries have yellow flowers with rounder-shaped fruits that point up. If you accidentally eat some mock strawberries thinking that they're wild strawberries, there's nothing to be concerned about. The good news is that mock strawberries are considered edible, they just don't taste very good. The summer has progressed a little bit, so wild strawberry season has come and gone, and now we're into wild raspberry season. So unfortunately, nothing ripens at the same time, of course, so you kind of have to pick things as you go. So today I've gone out and I've picked a handful. I've also been gathering some over the last couple of weeks, and I've been storing them in my freezer until I've accumulated enough to make a small batch of jam. Wild raspberries grow on viney bushes that are studded with little thorns, and they have compound leaves with 3 to 7 leaflets. A compound leaf is a leaf that has one single leaf blade with multiple individual leaflets that stem off of that blade. The fronts of the leaves are green, but when you flip them over to expose the back, they're a little bit more white in color. The color of your raspberries will depend on which specific species of raspberry that you have. In my video today, I have red raspberries and black raspberries, and just as the name suggests, red raspberries are red and black raspberries are black. Raspberries are aggregate fruits, which means that they're composed of many individual drupelets that are fused to a central core. When you pick raspberries, the core will detach from the fruit, leaving behind a hollow cavity where the core used to be. The core will stay attached to the plant. You can tell when raspberries are ripe because they will detach from the core very easily with little to no effort. If you have to pull on the raspberry for a little bit and it's still not coming off, then it's not quite ripe yet. If you pick a raspberry before it's fully ripened, it will be more on the tart side, whereas if you leave it on the plant until it's fully ripened, it will be very, very sweet. Black raspberries can be a little bit deceiving at first because they start off as red while they're underripe, and then they develop into black once they're ripened. So because of this, a lot of people confuse them for red raspberries. If you aren't 100% sure, just do the tug test. So if you see these raspberries that are red in color, give them a little tug, and if they detach from the core easily, then you likely just have a ripe red raspberry. If they don't detach easily, just let them ripen for a couple more days and see what happens. If they develop to be black in color, then you have black raspberries. Our first step today is to measure out our berries, and I do this to make sure that I have the proper ratio of lemon juice and sugar to the amount of berries that I have. The ratio that I follow when I'm making jam is a half a cup of sugar for every 1 cup of berries and a half a tablespoon of lemon juice for every 1 cup of berries. In this case, I have about 4 cups of berries, so I'm going to be using 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and 2 cups of sugar. I place all the ingredients in a pot over medium heat. I have my sterilized jars all ready to go. Unfortunately, I ran out of the jars that I usually use for jam making, so I have to use these larger jars instead. Since I know I'm only making a small batch of jam today, I really hope that I have enough jam to at least fill one of these jars. As the berries are cooking down, I'm just going to squish them a little bit to help release some of their juices. Once most of the juices have been released from the berries, we're going to turn the heat up to high heat, and we're going to bring our jam to a boil. We're going to continue to cook them like this until they reach their gel setting point. The easiest way to tell if your jam has reached this point is to use a candy thermometer until it reaches 220 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're like me and you don't have a candy thermometer, you kind of just have to guess. One of the methods you can use to help you is to place a small dab of the jam on a cold plate and place it in the freezer for a couple of minutes. After a couple of minutes, you can remove this plate from the freezer and just poke the jam with your finger to see if it's reached the consistency that you'd like. If it's not quite there yet, just continue this process every couple of minutes until the jam has reached your desired consistency. Once the jam is to your liking, remove it from the heat. If you're going to use the plate method, I recommend that you use a plastic plate rather than glass one, just because if you take a glass plate straight out of the freezer and then put something scalding hot on it, there's a potential for the glass to crack. So to be on the safe side, I recommend that you use anything but glass. Once your jam has finished cooking, you're going to pour it into your sterilized mason jars for canning, leaving a 1/4 inch of headspace. And just as I feared would happen, I don't quite have enough jam to fill up one jar, which means I have way too much headspace. Having too much headspace when you're canning can lead to a whole bunch of issues, including your lid not sealing properly, your lid not sealing at all, faulty seals later on, spoiled food, and discoloration. This essentially means that I won't be able to safely can this jar to make it shelf stable. For the purpose of this video, I'm still going to can this jar just to show you what I want it to do. Regardless of whether this jar seals or not, I'm going to have to keep it in my fridge and use it within the short term just to be on the safe side. When you're canning, make sure you don't forget these steps. The first one being that you need to use a tool to debubble to make any trapped air rise to the surface. Second, make sure you wipe the rim of the jar with a clean cloth and vinegar. This makes sure that the rim is extra clean so you have less potential for issues when you're canning. And third, when we screw on the lid, make sure that it's only fingertip tight, so one twist. The jam gets processed for 10 minutes in a water bath canner or a steam canner. Once your jar has finished processing, place the hot jar on a towel on the counter for 24 hours before storing. This jam is easy to make, absolutely delicious, and definitely a staple in our pantry. I hope you love it as much as we do.